When we first started looking at mass customized learning, we know that there are many components to that, and one of them is really the ability to attack the structure of our rigid system now. So we knew that we were going to be looking for some flexibility to support learner voice and choice, and for them to be able to have some more exploration, specifically at the middle school level. As a district, we've been looking at moving towards a customized learning structure for about 4 years. We met with the community and we really talked about how can we improve programming while better utilizing our building structure that we currently had. So we didn't go to the community and ask for more funds or more money. We said we have current buildings that could work with this. And so that's how we came up with our configuration. This year, the 17-18 school year, was the first year that we implemented our 2 STEAM centers. And that was just at capacity. So when we were traveling around to different locations, looking at what schedule tools they were using, we actually attended the National MCL Summit, and there we identified the personalized learning tool, which is the scheduling system we use now. And that allows us to chunk up our day in meaningful blocks, where, but still allowing students to be able to have that choice in how they schedule their day. There are certain things that, of course, they're locked into, like the core classes, but at the end of the day, we wanted to create, and we knew we needed to create that flexibility for them to be able to do much more exploration than they were allowed to do in a traditional 7-period day schedule.
So we are an all 7th grade building currently, but what we love about it is we will keep them as 8th grades. They will loop with us. We're a little over 200 kids, and then 10 core teachers and myself. So we have created a space where we're really getting to know each and every learner, and then starting next year they'll be with us again with the same teacher, so we already know their learning style, some of their needs, and we're able to jump right in. Learners set a base schedule and then we roll that over for about 6 to 8 weeks. However, each week they are able to make some adjustments. So lunch can be a change, some of their independent time, they can change to work with different groups. Their PE courses, they all have an individualized PE plan, so those they can adjust throughout the week. We keep their collaborative learning space, their English, Math, Social Studies, Science locked in, but the other things they can be flexible to what extra supports they need that week, what group they might be working with that week, and make adjustments. So here's an example of a student. They are going to go to mentor time for 15 minutes with their mentor teacher. They're going to do circle group where they go around and discuss their goals for the day. They're all going to review the schedule, make a plan. Some use Google Keep, some use sticky notes to give themselves focus for the day. Then they go off. He might go to math class. He'll spend 40 minutes there. From there, he goes to our collaborative learning space, spends another 40 minutes there. Then he's got a 20-minute brain break, independent time, where he'll come, grab a snack, work on some of the goals he set for the day, work on his independent interest project. After that 20 minutes, he's now off to English class for a 60-minute English course, and then he's ready for lunch. He's going to need a break, so takes lunch for 20 minutes, schedules a 20-minute recess, then goes to a 20-minute just math support class, drop in during that next lunchtime, then back off to mentor. They go to mentor for 30 minutes. In mentor class, again, they're doing small group discussions. We're doing some of our English reading content with their mentor teachers. Then off for another hour where they're flexing into social studies or an English class. And then the last 20 minutes of the day back to the mentor where they do some reading time.
We had last year in the middle school, they would have a 7-period day. So they had a homeroom, they had their core classes, and then they had 2 elective classes. That's how it was structured. And then they obviously had a lunch period. And so what we looked at is that really limited the choice for them in that day. As an example, they could take band and choir, but then they maybe never were able to take PE or art during their middle school career. And we wanted to make sure that they could still take band and choir, for example, but also have the opportunities to have some physical activity and to be participating in arts, other art choices if they wanted, as an example. So what we've done here is we've been able to say, how can we integrate some of the core discipline areas? So maybe they take English and science together one day, and then also be able to, or English and social studies, for an example. And then that gives us some flexibility to free up some time. The other piece is not looking at everything as a 5-day-a-week, 1-hour-a-day scheduling block like we had been. Some courses, for example, might only be 2 times a week for 40 minutes. Our PE courses here are more of a health and wellness, so you just have to commit to 2 days a week of doing some physical activity of your choice. So it's shifting from saying PE is a semester class that you might or might not get to have to we're concerned about your health and wellness and what are some activities that long term will stay with you.
A learner, they'll have math every day, but that could change in time depending on what they need. So there's a course, they're in robotics, and they need extra time in the open robotics lab. So they will schedule that in the day, and then their math may be earlier in the day so they can get in with their group and really dig deeper into their robotics project. So we're able to customize and move based on what they need.
From the administrative perspective, at the district perspective, certainly, is you need to look at a system that you can grow into. You need to look at a system that's going to support the flexible structure that you're looking for in your district. You also need a system that is able to be a tighter structure and then go to a more loose structure. And that's what we've recognized, is that we can make this structure as tight or as loose as it needs to be, as flexible or as inflexible as maybe it needs to be to support learners through that process. It's going to be very important that we don't just find a tool that replaces the rigid structure we already have. That isn't going to help move us forward when we think of some of these long-term goals that we're looking at for our children.
How are you going to organize? Because every learner is following a different schedule. Every 20 minutes there'll be a couple kids fluctuating. It's never a bell rings and all 200 kids are transitioning to another class. 20-minute hits and maybe 60 kids, their class ended, they're going somewhere else. The next 20 minutes, maybe 100, a couple classes let out. So knowing where these kids are going and how to navigate, we need to be able to keep track of them. They need to be able to keep track of themselves as well. We started with a new software program, Personal Learning Tools, which at first, navigating and figure out how to make it fit our needs, because every school is a little different and every school is going to do it a little different. So we really had to work with the programmers and developers to make adjustments to how it works, what it looks like on the learner's end, what it looks like on my end as an administrator, as I'm helping adjust schedules. So that was a little bit of a hurdle at first.
Step 2 is then working with your educators who are going to be implementing this. It requires, we focus on the scheduling software certainly, but a piece that I think is very important from a district perspective is to understand the amount of collaboration that is now required with your staff. Before, I just knew as an educator that I might teach math 5 periods a day. Now my work that I do, it's going to have to be included with all of my colleagues here in this system.
We worked with Creative Change, and they came in and trained our teachers starting last year. We did several days developing the units, looking at standards and aligning them with the units we were going to create. And then over the summer, the learning facilitators continued to work on these and develop these projects. They're collaborating now and they love it. So we always have 2 teachers co-teaching in our collaboration space, English and social studies, and maybe a science and English teacher. And so just being together and planning that and working together, it's the excitement, because it's all about creating relevancy for the kids. And so it's natural excitement that comes from seeing kids get excited about something that's going to apply to their life.
I think as a district leader or an administrator, you need to pay attention to your community. You need to know how ready they are to move on this. It requires a lot of capacity with not only the superintendent, district leaders, but also your educators and your parents, because you're really educating an entire community all at once. And that you need to make sure that you're very well aware of what capacity you have. I know we could not do a full K-12 implementation. We did not have the capacity at that time. But we now understand the capacity that's required to move this up and move this down into our other buildings. When we think about what we're preparing our kids for and what future lies in front of them, it's different than the future that was in front of me when I graduated from high school. And I think that we have to be mindful of that we're really trying to prepare our learners for jobs that don't exist. And that's going to require a very different way of managing ourselves, our time, and our talents. And keeping that in mind, what we want to do is start by giving them the opportunity to be able to see what that feels like. So in a traditional model, they maybe know they have first hour, second hour, third hour. It's very teacher directed. They recognize all the periods are the same amount of time, and they don't really have to take any ownership for being on time because there's always something there telling them that. We both know that isn't the real life. That is not the real world. So what we're trying to do is, within a safety net in a web of support, be able to give our learners the opportunity to see what it feels like to really manage their day in a very safe and still structured way. So I often hear when we talk about these customizing schedules that it's more of a free-for-all. It's really not. It's still structured. It's just a flexible structure. And so as we support our learners through this process, it has been challenging because I will hear them say, it was easier when someone just told me where to go and what to do. But that isn't preparing them for that world that exists for them. And we need to start now. We can't wait till they're seniors in high school and expect them to be able to figure this out, oftentimes when they're away from their parents without that security and safety net of support that we can offer them while they're here with us.